with technology, we can go into something like unbundling work, which is chapter 9 of the book. So when we talk about unbundling work, you think of it at how the radio cassette worked previously. 20 years ago, when we were forced to buy a cassette tape or a CD because of one song, then they come bundled with another, let's say 10, another 8 or 9 songs to make it into an album, right? But with technology such as Spotify, Netflix, all these streaming services and all that, now we have the choice of choosing only the single piece of artwork that we like. So that would be something similar to the concept called unbundling things. So in terms of job, can we look at it from this perspective as well? So when we reconfigure the labor market, we are looking at how we actually make the practice as what happened previously during the industrial age. When we move from manufacturing towards the automation, that means most of the job is being taken up by machines. What we substitute all this labor force or the labor market with is the servicing industry. So can we do the same one? We have these data-driven markets in place into corporates. That means how are we going to relocate all these human resources or all this manpower once their jobs, we are talking about middle income or the middle class, and we are talking about some lower level managerial jobs at the moment. What happened to these people once we replace them with automation in terms of decision making and in terms of information flow? For instance, the teller in front of at the front lines of all the banks, what would these people have to do after the automation due to the big data revolution or evolution, right? How are we going to place all these middle class, even the lower level of the managerial people? Because we might be talking about social unrest or unstable of the whole society due to job loss. During the industrial revolution, we still have the servicing industry. But then as the leaders or as entrepreneurs, what we need to think about is that what are the new jobs that we could be providing for the markets once we put in all this automation and all this data. And one thing I think we explored, Faisal, with this data warehouse system is that we are talking about data scientists, we are talking about algorithm, and then from the market, we are talking about all these creative jobs that at the moment still can't be handled by computer system. Then inside the book, we talk about 3 types of model. One is about the distributive model, the other one is about the participatory model, and they also explore about universal basic income. So once we release, this workforce has been has been replaced by a machine. How would nation states going to compensate the tax they were previously collecting from all these working class, all these employees? The distributive model, we talk about how we are going to tax all this computer system. That means to replace all those previous tax that we collect from the labor or the human forces, human capital forces, can we tax computer system who provide or who adds value to our system as one of the income sources for us to redistribute it to a more sustainable society or to further develop our nation state? This is one of the things. Then the participatory model, we talk about how to retain the existing workforce and upgrade them or reskill them. But this would provide, this would be based on one very strong belief that they will have a new jobs where we human beings will essentially create for them, so that the same thing would happen like how we shift or how we move all those lower skill level labor into the servicing industry. So this will go back to what we discussed in the previous chapter about the firm future. How are we going to relocate it? But provided we do have sufficient and enough real job for them to move from the servicing industry, let's say move them towards the data industry or move them towards the sustainable industry, or so to speak, whatever terms that we are going to coin it as entrepreneurs. Then the thing of the universal basic income, if not mistaken, is supported by the Tesla founder as well. So it's all about creating that basic resource or the wealth distribution towards everybody. So that means everybody will have at least a basic income for them to sustain their life, for them to go through their day-to-day living, and the rest will pretty much depend on how they want to proceed on themselves. So this would be like providing at least the basic survival needs to everybody fairly and equally. So I think we are seeing all these things happen in silos as well. And at the end of the day, it might still be a hybrid model among all these three. So these are all in progress. And I think for the universal basic income is something quite good at the moment, because I think with all this big data, all this technology, basically, once everything is in place, we can really figure out how many resources we have, and what if we redistribute all these resources into all the human beings that would be needing these resources. How long can we sustain? Then by machines or by computer systems or by AI telling us all these things, one of the possibility of universal basic income, or at least to let everybody sustain with dignity, could happen in the near future. So this is how the shrinking role of labor and how the shift in the distribution of resources could happen. Okay, now, they did a very interesting, what you call research as well. When we are talking about automation, when we are talking about data-rich markets, we should be releasing a lot of profit and make it into either the capital gain or to the shareholders' benefit as well. But what they found out is that all these supposedly beneficiary resources had not been realized into the actual market. That means we are seeing a lot of technology advancement in the market through all these big companies or through all these corporates as well. But then people are still living in a range of wages quite similar to 10 or 20 years ago. That means we have a very high inflation rate. We have a very, what you call effective computer system or effective corporate system running the world at the moment. But how come many people are still struggling at the moment? So where has all this profit gone at the moment? Then the book actually illustrates some of the possible, what you call, the exit point where all this released profit has went. So one is through the creative corporate tax planning, and one is through the heavy investment, reinvestment into the R&D to further grow all this system, right? So these are still something debatable, and it's like how we are going to redistribute all the resources once we really release or unlock it from what's supposedly dragging our progress at the moment. So for example, right, when we talk about work from home at this point of time, I have a GIF that I saw from somewhere from the internet. Imagine previously, without all this lockdown, all the workforces, all the employees every day, they actually spend around at least half an hour to 1 hour going to work, and half an hour or to 1 hour coming back home from the work. So if we are talking about a single employee, that means that's 2 hours of time resources per day, per working day or per business day for each and every people we have in the workforce. When we talk about work from home, that means, let's say our meeting just now we scheduled at 10:30. For the sake of illustration, then we might be waking up at 10. We might have a 15 minutes breakfast. We might have a 15 minutes tidy up and all that. Then we go into our meeting. That means we are actually releasing out at least 2 hours per day for ourselves. How are we going to allocate these resources usefully and meaningfully for ourselves? This is from personal perspective. So when we multiply this with the whole workforce, then what are we going to do with this? This is also something that we can ponder and something that we can look into as a technopreneur or as someone who can come up with a system to make this world a better place, to make this world a meaningful place, and how to make things more sustainable. So if these things works during MCO or during lockdown, would that mean that the environment or the world is actually telling us that something that we thought couldn't be done before can actually be done? So once this thing has been proven being done, how are we going to make the change? How are we going to make that adjustment so that we can really benefit from what we have learned during this lockdown period? So this is one of the things that
Can I interject? I mean, is this going to be a
yeah,
discussion,
sure.
or is it going to be more of a a webinar type? Uh,
Excuse me.
is it a webinar type of or is it going to be more of a discussion? Can I come and interject?
Discussion.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yes.
we are open.
Yeah, because I think it's interesting that you mentioned about unbundling of work and
Yes.
how distribution of profits can be done. If you look at current situations, right, you have a situation where the profit is gone back to the founder, in a sense. It's not effectively allocated. You look at Amazon, for example, where Jeff Bezos is making, hundreds of billions, but their workers can barely have a break in the warehouse, right? So I think
Yep.
there needs to be a way um, to 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 distribute profits accordingly, because I think that's the reason why wages are not going up. It's being suppressed, and then it must be a way. I mean, like this coming from us as founders, right? But I do see that
Yep.
there is inefficiency in the market. If you look at that as inefficiency, that is inefficient because you have one person hogging all the profits, and even at the shareholding level, you have a lot of shareholders. A lot of times, even the current situation with airlines, there is
Yep.
the last time airlines were in trouble, what happened was, and even banks were in trouble, when there was a quantitative easing and also putting in of capital by the government. The money was used to basically buy back shares, essentially to reward shareholders, right? So I think if there's enough information in the market, and uh, you can make the workers also shareholders. I think this is something that needs to be looked at in the future, where everybody is participating in the profit pool, right? Based
Yep.
on the
Yep.
effort that's put in, and that's something that needs to be considered, because if we don't resolve this, and there's an opportunity there, if you don't resolve this, and then the situation of uh, unequal distribution and infinite distribution of the profits from a venture will still be going on. So I think that's something that we can put in from that perspective. It's going to be hard sell, because um, the capital owners will always want to have the largest cake in the whole thing,
Yep.
right? But
Yep.
it's not sustainable in the future. So that's why we have situations nowadays where the capital owners are willing to go to all lengths, including cutting down trees and polluting the environment, because to them, maximization of profit is the most important thing. And I think that's something that, when it comes to education, it needs to happen for next generation, and it can be done, I think, with technology. um, it's just a matter of how intrusive you want the technology to be. So I think that's my take on this part, when you talk about unbundling and distributive income.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Thanks, Rasan. Any feedback from you, Faisal or Lisa, that you'd like to comment on regarding this unbundling of work?
I think we are entering the phase where we always call it like future of work. Right? Before this, I think we talked a lot about this conceptually. Now, the pressure is already available. I'm sharing with you. I just got a message from one of these SME group about the article. Not to say article, about the idea that I mentioned this morning. Right? Is your
Yep.
business what do you call it?
Relevant.
Coronavirus proof, right?
Mm.
And there are 7 questions that I put there. I just purposely doing that because I want to see how do people perceive towards that. Majority saying that they couldn't understand the question, number 1, and they are focusing more on waiting for the money to come to them. This is
Mm.
very worrying,
Interesting.
Bro Rashdan.
Mm.
Sebab apa tau, bro? Because sudah biasa diberi makan, diberi duit. When the time we need to sustain, they come. Dia tak faham apa maksud sustainable. All they will say is that I can only last for another month. Can government give me more money or not? Oh, 220B is only one off. Lepas ni tak ada dah. So that's a bit worrying. So those 7 questions is sebenarnya to really nak tanya these people. Is it, are you ready for this? Are we really in deep shit? How can we fix it? You know, what we need to do.
Yep.
Rather than asyik macam apa Allah ada, apa memang Allah semua ada. Itu semua klise, memang ada lah. But what do we need to do now? Kan? So coming back to you, Ko,
Yep.
all these modules are actually, I would say, the framework of how we can unbundle all this work so that we can be more effective. For a reason, when MCO started phase 1, now it's entering phase 2, I personally think I really create more things, you know, in terms of my
Definitely.
work. I think the effect, the productivity level shoot up. I get more respondents from my client. I get more focus. I'm going to launch new product. And I have you all here joining Meta. You don't even meet before this about this, right?
Yep.
Tu maksud dia tadi, if we can use this experience, right, and modelize it the way how Koh put it in this perspective, but make it simple for that average Joe that can understand this, I think it will work. That's partly where I think we can put under Meta, guys,
Yep.
is to really
Sure.
help people onboarding this. That's my perspective on this. I'm trying to be as realistic as I can, you know, in this.
Yep.
I think the because of the situation, and I was forced to make this work, right? Because before this, a lot of people, you know, you ask them to go online, do a online meeting. So more, there's a lot of, defensiveness. But when people have to, then then they're on board now. I think it's a matter of how do we make this sustainable to in the future, because things are going to change. Now that people have the taste of efficiencies, you know, I can have, you know, 6 meetings in a day and not having to go anywhere. You know, I mean, it's very, very efficient. Macam
Yep.
Faizal cakap, I'm developing 2 new products, 3 actually on right now as we are talking, and you know, with 3 different teams, and it's unprecedented in terms of productivity. But the question will be, how do you change the mindset in the long term? You know, post COVID, I think for me right now, I'm thinking about post COVID already in terms of how to help people to survive. Number one, because that's the opportunity there. How to help startups, because a lot of people are complaining. I mean, like if you look at a lot of the groups that we are in, the startup groups, even. I mean, for a simple reason that a lot of the startups did not experience recession before. Did not. I mean, we were around when the times of the recession last time, 2000, the 2000s recession, and then 2009, and it is the third recession that we're in, that we've gone through. And as business people, at least for myself, a lot of people I'm talking to, the old timers, they've gone through this, but the younger guys, they need help with this. I think there's opportunities for us here when it comes to giving out information about how to change the mindset when it comes to living post COVID as a business and also as individuals. And that's something that I want to bring to the government also, because I see some agencies quickly adapting, but a lot of government agencies are not. Even MOE, one of the largest recipients that can make this work very, very well when it comes to that can benefit from this change to online, is not doing it aggressively for whatever reasons. I mean, the data just came out yesterday. There's 86% of the students have handphones, but what are we doing about that? They're still doing TV pendidikan for now, which is a one-way information transfer. So those are things that I think Meta, Stark Asia, all our nations can help to advocate, and also to make it more, macam Faizal cakap, to make it more accessible to laymen on how to take advantage of these technologies to change the way work is done post-COVID. And I think that's something that we should be doing. I think Faizal was totally correct when he mentioned about how to make this something more accessible, because a lot of people are grappling with the way they're grappling with these changes that's happening, and that's where I think people like us, that's where we come in.
Yep, understand. So, Lisa, anything to
I mean, looking at the marketing side for me, right? Definitely, I would request whatever that you're presenting in a very layman term, so that when we sell or when we pitch, when we create awareness, it will be very easy for other people that is not tech savvy to understand. So
Okay.
yeah, that's my input on it lah. Creating awareness at this point of time for post-COVID is definitely very crucial.
Yep. Okay, understand. So I think there's a quite interesting discussion here, and I think Roshan, the one you mentioned, maybe we could be looking at something like stakeholders instead of shareholders kind of things. So that means how distribution is going to be worked, and then how resources is going to be put together,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I think that would be the terms of stakeholders.
Right.
Let me see.
Yeah, because that's a mindset change, not
Yeah.
not necessarily a legal change in terms of structure, but it's more a mindset
Yep.
change. Yep.
Yep, it's a mindset change, and that I think would be one of the most challenging part. Looking at what is happening around us at the moment. So the unbundling work. Let me see whether we still have. Yes. So these are the three things that they actually propose in the book. So making companies that capture the profit of big data. That means these companies should be responsible as part of their CSR instead of doing charity work, etc., etc. That means like once we introduce something that could replace people in their job scopes, how are we going to relocate all these people as one of a backup plan or contingency plan for the things that we are introducing, right? I mean, these are just suggestions. So we would be having a lot of trial and progress things going on. Then whether this data-driven thing, when it concentrate or converge into a very big corporate entity, how are the laymen or the ordinary people going to be affected? Excuse me, or even benefit from it? Excuse me. So that means they are proposing this thing called progressive data mandate. That means as a company who holds a lot of data, how are you going to be legally bind to share your resources with the rest of the world? That means we need to ensure that no single large corporate or entity will get the grips of all the important information, so that there won't be any concentration of power into a single system or into a single group of people. According to what has been seen throughout history, when something can be controlled, it ought to be, and people will control it. Right? So this is about preventing the centralization of power into a single entity, be it a computer system, be it a group of people, or be it a single person who holds the key to all this information data. So the data sharing, progressive data sharing mandate is something that we could be looking into as well. So this will fall into the framework thing that you mentioned about just now, Faisal. So this thing will ensure that the market will stay competitive. So in terms of a one-way data feed, can it be done what we call in both ways? That means ordinary people, consumers sharing the data with the corporates or the system, and then the system will progressively release some of the findings of the data so that it can be used to spur more new incomers or more new business ideas and all that, to ensure the market stay competitive and to ensure the healthy progress of the overall ecosystem, right? Then about the human labor, they are proposing that maybe we could have some form of income streams that is just a little bit cheaper than machines, to ensure that human being got something to do or whatever it is, so that we don't what you call waste our time unnecessarily. So these are just some of the policy measures inside the book that they propose when we talk about unbundling work or we talk about future of jobs. So it's something work beyond the payslip as what is happening at the moment. So most people, they go to job at the moment is because they accept a single figure for a monthly package time deal that we call bundle jobs, right? So are we talking about the full force of gig economy or these things called slasher kind of things are happening in a larger scale, or this could be the majority of how things work in the future. So these are something that we as an entrepreneur or technopreneur or decision makers or developing something interesting that we might want to look into, right? So at the end of the day, it's still about human choice, how we want to develop our AI system, how we want to put in place what we know and the resources that we can gather to come up with something that at the very basic, at the very bottom part of it, or the baseline of it, that we still retain our human value or what makes us human at the end of the day. So this is just some of the discussion point. And I think these 2 points is for today's discussion, the future of firms and the future of jobs, because I think this is somehow very relevant to what we are facing at the moment. So people are looking at these two very important information at the moment.
Yeah. So
by that,
it just came to my idea, guys, about meta lah kan. How do meta really facilitate all this? Whatever that Koh mentioned here, I think it's very much relevant and we are entering it lah. Cumanya, we need to find a way how to like articulate this to the mass. That's something we can think of when we articulate this methodology lah. Because this framework is literally like what Rashdan mentioned just now, to shift people's mindset to at least create the awareness for them to achieve that. Right? And of course, behind the scene, we have all these ready solutions, right? Bro Rashdan, the one they are working on, your platform, your my product, those kind of things. Those will be the lineup of services available for this mess to take up later. That's the solution part. Is how we solve this thing, right?
Right.
But onboarding them towards this journey is something like what we are discussing now. Ko is showing this methodology or framework. And after this, I'm going to show or share a bit more on how we do the access to the data. I try not to be like macam betul-betul layman on this. We try to how to say, you guys macam check on me so that I won't go to all this tech jargon. I'm trying to learn how to, because with this meta we're having, I need to be less an engineer but more to like a guy who be so friendly to people so that they take this thing up.
And I think that's that's a job of the future lah. I think the job of the future will be more of the human interaction, because that's the only way humans will have value later. It's about this thing that machines cannot do, right? I think that and it's all about relationships building. And unfortunately, I'm an introvert, so how does it work?
I think introverts thrive at this point of time. I have another GIF I can share with you over the WhatsApp group later.
So all of us have to unlearn all our previous we have to back and expand. So it's funny that we're all asking our kids to learn mathematics and science and whatever those kind of things, right? And yet in the future, what's important is relationship building. And they should be teaching them how to be more empathic, more and those kind of things. Of course, the core knowledge is important, but we keep on going towards this. Let's get 12 A's and 13 A's and 14 A's. It doesn't help anyone. I think it all boils down to the what you call the Bloom's taxonomy, the top two of creation and sharing. And I think we are failing our kids when it comes to that, when it comes to our education system. And that's one thing I've been trying to get MOE to change, to embrace that top two digital Bloom taxonomy task that needs to be created for our skill sets, to create it for kids in the future.